evening and welcome to the Monomoy Regional School District School Committee special meeting for Monday, April 3rd at 7:30 p.m. in the high school library. This meeting will be broadcast to channel 22 as well as live streamed and recorded to the Monomoy Regional School Committee YouTube channel. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:33 p.m. And first item on the agenda, and most important, is public comments. There will be no real restriction tonight, and we're just happy to hear from anyone who'd like to come up and speak. I just ask when you come to the podium to just tell us your name, which would be great. And the floor is open. Anyone would like to comment? Oh, come on. All right, fantastic.
So I have a student going on the trip, hopefully. Robin Kelly. And my son has been in France this whole week, and he left there yesterday. And he went to the Eiffel Tower, went to tons of museums, out to dinner, him and his wife, and now he's in Amsterdam and he's flying home tomorrow. He did say that on some of the side streets there was a lot of trash. I guess the trash people are not picking up the trash. So they're on the side streets, but all the main drags where he was, he said he felt he was perfectly safe. I am going on a 2-week European vacation, and I'll be staying in Paris on the 19th, 20th, and 21st. And our hotel told us to come on down, so that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Steph, you look like you want to, but you're not sure.
Thank you. I don't envy any of you having to make this decision. My son is going on the trip because of his needs. I am also going with him. And I feel, because I'm going with, I feel comfortable being there with him, and I understand the concern for parents who are sending their children somewhere where they are not going to be with them that could potentially be dangerous. I do want to make 2 points. One is, because of my son's needs, there's special considerations, and the organizers of the trip have been working with this company for 2 years. And we got a message from them last week basically saying, Europe isn't accessible. We may not really be able to accommodate you. You may want to consider not going, and you can't have any money back. That's basically what the letter said, after 2 years of knowing that he was coming. Maybe not quite 2 years, but maybe a year and a half. So whatever the decision is, I think that going forward and considering all the things that Scott shared with us on Friday on how unaccommodating that they've been, I would really consider not using this company. And any company you use, ask the questions about their flexibility if something like this happens. If the school board decides to cancel this trip, the parents have no say, and we essentially don't get all of our money back because the company thinks it's okay to go. So, what can we do in the future to prevent stuff like this from happening? I'd also just like to express my gratitude. Often, with a child like I have, and I know a lot of you know him, we often have to ask for everything. And so to be invited to something like this without having to be like, can we please go, felt really good. And so I hope that there will still be opportunities for our kids in the future to be able to do something like this. Because often we have to push and ask and beg for things to happen, and it's felt good that we didn't have to do that this time. So I appreciate all the work that everybody's done to put into this and for including us. So that's it.
Thank you. We've got a couple more people join us. Is there anyone else that would like to share their thoughts, opinions, anything they've seen, not seen, heard, not heard? Something you're nervous about, something you have questions about, question about our process, question about how we got to this place, our approval process for trips. And we can certainly touch on, how we approve trips and when we get to the next section and clarify that. But truly, this is about the students and their parents, and it's come to us that we are being asked to vote on it. And I agree that it's not the best situation for anyone to be in. So I encourage, if you do have any thought, anything is open. Nothing's wrong.
I do actually have a question. Has there been any other outcome since our conversation Friday evening?
Okay, any updates from the company or anything like that?
Yeah.
I haven't read your full thing yet, Dr. Carpenter. Are there any updates?
So the only thing I've heard from the company since Friday is they emailed just a little bit before this meeting, just wanting to know what the outcome was from the parents' meeting, what's the outcome from the school committee meeting, because they are waiting to hear from the outcome before they even secure ground transportation, which again gets to a concern that Stephanie raised that, and it doesn't say before they secure accessible ground transportation, which I keep trying to raise with them, like, it's not just ground transportation. Is it accessible ground transportation? And if a strike takes, if the driver or the bus company decides that they're not doing it that day, what's your plan B? And that's been kind of crickets.
Okay. I'm gonna probably just, as we talk and there are questions, I want to keep it open for questions for members of the public, which is kind of unorthodox for the way we run a meeting, but the importance of this meeting is to hear from everyone, so I'm not going to be as structured as normal, just so as long as everyone on the committee is okay with that. Just because I think it's important as we talk, things might come up that you're thinking about, or maybe you want to say something that you didn't think of before. So I think at this point we'll open discussion, and I'm just going to start only because I had the opportunity to attend the meeting on Friday, which was virtual, and I actually met because we were here for the Wizards game. I met in Miss Grogan's room, and I believe Miss Kennard was there as well. And there was probably, I think I counted 30-something, but that wasn't including duplication on the screens. There were husband and wives and all kinds of things. So there was very well attended. I would say probably almost every parent or student that was attending was present or represented in some way. I felt that I kind of kept a tally on what people were feeling, and I basically, if you're tallying with a marker, I got 5 people were feeling apprehensive about going, and 4 were it should be the parents' decision whether or not our children go on the trip. And then a lot of it was just informational. Dr. Carpenter shared what he knew about the company, what the information the company had shared with us so far, what we had done as a district to push back on the company to gather more information or push them towards rescheduling or moving the trip or postponing to next year, and also pushing back on, despite the fact that insurance was required and purchased by everyone, that there was only going to be 3/4 of your monies returned to you. Because that, in our opinion, is not acceptable considering the reasons why we're canceling and the reasons that are listed in the contract currently. So I appreciate all the parents that did attend and the students and everyone's comments. I am not a foreign political expert by any means. I try to stay away from the news, to be honest, because it just doesn't bring me joy. But with something like this, I have been following it, and Dr. Carpenter has shared a lot of clips. And I think what I've observed is it kind of changes every day. It's fluid. Some days are good, some days have been bad. Yes, Ms. Morris?
I think that's kind of where like the Morris household stands. Because I know someone that was there 5 days ago, and she texted me this morning to say that they did not, and they stayed right across from the Eiffel Tower. Mm-hmm. I've seen her pictures, the whole 9 yards. And she said that they didn't see a single person rioting, and that the locals said it was normal for the French to protest. Apparently they protest everything, and it's very peaceful. Some of the buildings and businesses were closed because they didn't actually have enough staffing because they were protesting, but they never felt unsafe or nervous. So like in our household, it's the same thing. We don't really like watch news in front of the kids because we try to make sure that they feel safe at home, at school, and at church. And I feel like we're getting such mixed messages that we're kind of like right in the middle as to what we feel would be best for Grace.
And I think that's the difficult part that we have to deal with tonight, is that we're in the middle, and you're right.
Yeah.
We're all getting different information from all types of sources, and great sources. And much like something like striking or, unrest in a country where decisions are being made and people are unhappy, those things change politically every day. I think one of the key points I learned at the meeting on Friday was that on March 14th, which is actually the day the kids leave, is the day of the vote.
Correct.
I think we could all assume that if the vote does not go in the favor of the union, that it might be fairly disruptive for a certain amount of days or for a longer period of time. And if it doesn't, you might find that it's more peaceful. It ebbs and flows. So that unpredictability is what we have to focus on, and making a decision for the whole group. One of the other things we talked about was the fact that if we canceled, you guys are only getting 3/4 of your money back. And I know that Dr. Carpenter has been working diligently with our attorney and with Explorica and trying to push for what's right here. And I guess I'll end for myself on this, but my feeling in this very moment, just strategically, if we want to get the whole group 100% refund, in my mind, business-wise, the best argument you have is if you cancel the trip and no one goes, you have a very solid argument, because we have so much to back it up, versus if we allowed the trip and you as a parent had the choice whether you felt safe for your child to go or not, it might make the case for those who choose not to go harder, because we may not be able to negotiate getting that full amount of money back. That's just strategy-wise in my brain, how it works. And that's not that anybody's decision is right or wrong, but that's kind of where my head is. So at this point, after speaking on the Friday meeting, I'm going to open it up to the committee. Do you want to just go in order around the table? Or you can raise your hand, whatever. Terry, I know you always have something to say. Are you processing still?
Thank you for that introduction. I think what Jackie said makes a lot of sense. I chatted with Dr. Carpenter, and the options are so limited, and no matter what we decide, in cases like this, it probably will be the opposite that will occur. So I, not being a parent of anyone in the group, but being a grandparent of a school kid, I would fall into the safe rather than sorry and not recommend. I would withdraw my vote to have this trip go forward.
Ms. Rogers?
This is an impossible decision to make. Such a great opportunity, but then at the same time, with so much unknown, I'm here with an open mind, though, here to listen and make a decision, as difficult as it is. But if anybody else has anything else to say, please. Okay.
Ms. Gray?
It's a lot to take in, and it's such an opportunity. Yeah, it's hard. I always go to the safest mode. I would hate for something to go wrong the minute that plane landed and these kiddos got there and there was massive unrest of some sort, and to put them in that kind of a situation makes me really uncomfortable. But again, we don't know what's going to happen that day. I can't say that will happen. But that's where my concern has really been sitting all weekend, is what if it doesn't go the way we hope? What are we sending them into? We don't know. But I'm still listening and I'm still thinking, because what a great opportunity. And if everyone's telling you guys it's fine, come on over, that's confusing, because you see, and I get it, it's the news, we see what they want us to see, so I'm aware of that, but, yeah, I'm still weighing it out, so help.
Ms. Finnegan?
Well, I am parachuted in, wasn't part of the conversation, so I'm going to abstain from giving an opinion, so thank you.
No problem. And Ms. Stout?
Yes, I feel I agree that this is a no-win situation, because there'll be people upset no matter which way this vote goes. But, you know, on one hand, I understand. I have a granddaughter at the high school. She's not going on this trip. She had wanted to, but didn't work out. And I know as a senior, that would have been whoever seniors would be going, that would be their last chance to have a high school trip. Everyone else has another chance, as far as I can tell, with some trip. Having taught not only high school but special needs kids, I think that it wouldn't be just the special needs kids I'd be worried about. These days, I'm a psychotherapist. Half the kids that are what we would consider just regular ed kids are having huge high anxiety. I have watched this on TV. Granted, I'm not there and I'm not talking to anyone there. But just watching it on TV could give a lot of kids, you know, secondary trauma. So, in the role of school committee, I would feel like I would have to vote against it, because if this traumatized any kid, or any kid had a situation with the roads and couldn't make it through and their wheelchair tipped over or anything, it could be a big problem. So there's only one other, in all of Monomoy's time, one other field trip I wasn't comfortable with. It was the first time we went to Cuba, I think it was. All the rest I've been comfortable with, but I can't feel that way about this one.
Thank you, Sharon. Mr. Russell?
Just to follow up on something, Betty, you said, and I really do not think the school committee can approve a trip based on hope. I hope all goes well. I hope it's beautiful weather. When we did approve this, you approve it on other things rather than hope. And this issue that's come up politically in Paris is no way to hope it away.
Is that the end of your?
I think that was the end.
Just wasn't sure what was coming next, Chair.
No, was
Just pause, he likes to pause sometimes. I just want to touch base on a couple things, just so you guys understand our process. So when a trip comes to us as a school committee, it's usually brought to us twice. It's brought to us our first reading, where we get to ask the questions and see what's going on. There's a slideshow. This one had a slideshow as well. We talk about the tour company. We talk about where you're going, what you're doing, how many kids, chaperone to student ratio. We ask all the questions. And sometimes we send them back wanting more answers if we don't have enough, and then they come back a second time, which is when we wait for those answers, and then we presumably vote on the trip. One of the questions I know we ask every single time is, have you worked with this tour company, and has it been a good experience? And I know for this tour company, it was, I believe it was previously World Strides, is what I was told, and it's now Explorica, and Costa Rica went, and it was fine. So when we vet a company, it's typically a company that, you know, Miss Barnes uses every time she goes to London. Like, they like those tour trips. So we are looking at the tour companies and how well they've worked for us in the past. So again, this is no way to predict this. It's just, you know, we look to say, is there insurance? Is there a contract? When we had COVID, prior to, like in the middle of COVID, obviously everything got canceled. It was out of our control. Going back into starting to approve visits when we were kind of out of COVID, we were looking at COVID protocols in the contracts, what they had written in, what we weren't comfortable with, if they didn't have something written in, how do we get kids home? I believe it was London last year where we actually had students had to stay in London, but we knew how that was gonna work prior to them going. We knew if somebody tested positive, what the plan was, how they took care of them, how they put them up, if parents could go over. It was well laid out. I think for something like this, I don't know how to plan for this, except that we're all going, why can't you just take their money and send them to another country or whatever? And I think at this point, they're just being inflexible. And I'm wondering if it's because we're not the only school that's offering to do this. I also know that a lot of companies are trying to recoup from COVID and all the losses they did have. So we're all learning as we go, more questions we need to ask so that we can continue to approve these trips, which are amazing opportunities for the students, and learn from decisions that maybe are out of our control, but how to handle it better. We know that we have chaperones going, and I want to make sure that our chaperones are confident with chaperoning children in chaos or whatever it might be. We look at things like level, so Scott always reports out if the country's at a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, a level 4, and then there's like little T's in parentheses for terrorism, there's little U's in parentheses for unrest. So there's definitely ways we as a committee, and Dr. Carpenter most importantly, monitors the countries, and so that's why this was brought to our attention, not only the media, but we're always watching, he's always watching. And then if there's concern, and there was concern, and I don't think, I've been on the committee for 7 years, and I don't think I've ever had to cancel a trip because of something like this. So we're always monitoring it, and we've never actually had something come back to the committee where we've had to, unfortunately, cancel something that especially is 2 years in the making, which hurts even more. The only thing I would say, my comment on people that are there or traveling there or locals that are living there is, my brain goes, well, if you're local and you're living there, like, you know your way around quicker, and transportation may not be an issue because you either have your own or you're making do while you're getting through what's going on, where we may have to move on the fly there. And when you're trying to move such a large group of 40 students or 30 plus students, that's definitely something I'm looking at. It's not easy to move a mass of kids as easily it is for you and your husband to go out and get groceries, or, decide, oh, I'm not going to go in that area today, I'll just do that errand later. So I don't know, that's just a comment. And Dr. Carpenter, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, there's a lot of this that just saddens me, because I shared at the parent meeting, my favorite presentation of all the international trips that we've had was the one for this one, because it was this very integrated type of presentation. It was, students who, were in French classes, and, Miss Linnell's French class that had a number of students that are part of the Best Buddies program. It was the first time that we would have a truly integrated trip where all students of all abilities can go experience international travel and have that world open to them. And here I have to be the curmudgeon to go and say, hey, I'm a little concerned. And for me, I shared at the parent meeting, my sort of approvals are in-state. So in-state trips, it goes through me, and those trips generally don't come to the school committee unless they're overnight things. And then, but an overseas trip is, coming to the school committee. And I just shared with the parents, if the same level of unrest was happening in Boston right now, I wouldn't be sending field trips up to Boston. I'd be saying, we're just not going to go to Boston now. We're going to postpone until the unrest is over. And I feel like I'd be negligent if I didn't at least alert the school committee to say, hey, there's some unrest there. We should, at least reach out to the travel company and try to reschedule. Or can we just not be in Paris and go do something else? And, I got a no, from a hard no from the travel company on that. And, I am also concerned that, that these advisories, that the U.S. Embassy in Paris is putting out, where 2 weeks ago, the advisory was just putting out that, that there's, demonstrations related to the pension reform are ongoing near the, Palace de Concorde and other parts of Paris, with trash and vehicles being set on fire. Police are responding, the palace has been evacuated, and then last week, the concerning thing that you start to see in the videos of what was going on, large-scale demonstrations throughout France with reports of hundreds of black-clad violent protesters infiltrating demonstrations, seeking clashes with police, damaging property, shooting fireworks, and setting fires. And you can see, that was happening in some areas. And what I've shared is, while a tour can, the tour group maybe can avoid the protest, you have all these people who are bad actors, if we want to call them that are heading towards that, and you can't necessarily avoid everybody as they're heading to it. And so I do worry just about the safety of our students, and one of my key jobs is to make sure that I'm not putting students and staff in potentially harm's way. Hence me kind of calling the school committee to say, hey, I think things have changed from what the trip was envisioned to be when we voted a year and a half ago. It's been that long ago to today.
Do we know if the U.S. Embassy over there?
What's that?
Is it open, U.S. Embassy? It is open right
Yeah.
now? Okay. Yes.
Dr. Carpenter, have you talked to other schools who had French trips to Paris scheduled and
So
what they were doing?
I put an email out to all the superintendents just saying who's got trips to France going. And you can imagine an interesting spectrum of responses to a couple that were like, what's going on in France?
Oh my gosh. I guess I don't watch the news.
To a couple who are with a different travel company that has been saying that they have a clear plan B, although with, and then I know that probably the nearest school that I know of that's going, I believe Plymouth South, is heading off to France. They land 2 days before us and are touring more of the country. I think they intend to be in Paris for part of it, but they're not just, it's not a Paris trip, it's more of a France trip. But again, I think, a concern, I think a growing legitimate concern is just the way the company scheduled us. We have groups that are going on 2 different planes with 2 different connecting layovers. And, the vote is going to happen while they're in the air heading to the layover, and potentially, if any, you can imagine just the delicate nature of trying to keep an airport open. If any group decides that they're going to walk off as a response, be it the air traffic controllers, the pilots, who's on the ground, that everything grinds to a halt, and that we potentially have students and chaperones stranded for a period of time in 2 places, and then, when they finally get to Paris, what's open, because, last Tuesday, things came to a head, and a lot of the places you'd want to go weren't available because the workers were on strike.
The complexity of this decision has to do with our feelings versus our responsibilities. And the feelings of the parents are so authentic. They want to have this opportunity for their kids. Clearly, the school committee had agreed this is a great opportunity for kids. But our job is not only to advocate for each child, but to advocate for all the kids and the chaperones who are going. And we are liable for the safety of our students and our staff. And we have to take, it's not about our feelings, it's about our heads. And, the United States European countries are warning people not to come to the United States because of school shootings. That's reality on the State Department in Europe. And we would say, well, that doesn't happen like every day. But of course it does happen every day, and it's so random. And so this is happening all over. We have to make a decision that we feel is in the best interest of all of our kids. And it's going to hurt somebody's feelings, and people are going to feel sad. But we have to do what we think is the right thing based on the information we know. And it is true, it's part of the, I remember once seeing a documentary about the French, how to be French. And it's, well, you work 4 days a week and then you strike 3 months a year. But that's not who we are. So, I mean, some of our kids haven't even been to Boston, let alone to a big city that in many ways is under siege, as far as we would be concerned, relative to the places that we live and the places that our kids are growing up. So our decision, I believe, the school committee's decision has to be based on practical information, the information that we have, and what's in the best interest of all of our students and their safety.
Sure. Nothing else to say, except if anyone else has any more questions. The only question I had was, so those superintendents don't have any apprehension about sending their trips over?
I think one wanted to know sort of the results of this conversation.
That's impressive.
And I think a couple others are watching the news tonight, or
our meeting?
yeah.
Yeah, otherwise what's the news? Okay. Yes,
Just out of curiosity, speaking of the chaperones, have they themselves, has the school committee asked the chaperones how they feel?
Yeah.
Do you feel as though you don't want to go, or do you feel as though it's okay to go? Like, is there?
Is it like, do you feel like it's being dictated by the chaperones, or
No,
do you have an idea of a pulse on it?
Poll
Yeah.
that said, yes, we're fine going still, or no, we don't want to go. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
very down the middle, I
Yeah.
won't lie.
Yeah.
Jen and I met with them. I don't know.
Jen, do you want to talk about meetings now real quick? And while Jen comes up, I'll just say that because I was in the room with Ms. Grogan, she kind of looked at me and was like, I will support whatever the school committee supports. It wasn't, I'm nervous or not. It just was like, I support what the best decision is for the group. And I know that's what she said, and Steph could obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. There was, Shayna was more neutral. We do have a couple people who are not comfortable going, and then we have 2 folks that would still go. So it's pretty divided. Yes. Yes.
So what happens if 2 chaperones don't feel comfortable going and we agree to the trip? Are there other folks who will step in?
I mean, I think that what we would have to determine is which families are still going to send their children, right? Because I think we were all on the same call, and there are families that, if we approve this tonight, they're still not going to go. And they made that very, very clear. So if people do back out, meaning chaperones, we still may be okay as far as the numbers go. If not, we would be quickly looking to try to replace.
I think that's another dilemma we have, that so I think one of the folks said it should be a parent's decision. But it's not that easy. It's a parent's decision that we're responsible for.
Correct.
And so it's that gray area
It's a
that,
compilation of a lot of people's decisions.
I'm sorry,
It's a compilation of a lot of decisions.
Yes.
A lot of people, I agree with you. I don't think it should be just the parents.
right,
I think obviously the parents should weigh heavily.
of course.
I mean, on Friday's conversation, my husband and I kind of walked away with, there was a lot of conversation about, let's just call it $1,000 for all intents and purposes. There was a lot of conversation about the loss of $1,000. But depending on what way it went, in the whole scheme of things, obviously we would love Grace to have this opportunity. She's going with like 3 of her best girlfriends, so at the moment she's like, completely shattered. But at the same time, he said, we're gonna do what's best. In all actuality, if I lost $1,000, if things got really bad, if that's the direction it took, I would lose $1,000 over, say, losing my kid.
Right.
I mean, I felt like there was a lot of emphasis on Friday's meeting about the $1,000, and I almost feel like that needs to be tabled until later, and then a decision's made, and then depending on what decision's made, then maybe you regroup and say, all right, well, we did decide no, so what are the next steps? But I feel like the question at hand, really to start, is the cut and dry of, is it canceled or not?
Right.
Mr. Russell? Oh, sorry.
Notwithstanding the money issue, which I think is very, very unfortunate and terrible, putting that aside momentarily is something Jen said. Let's just say we were able to let those folks go who want to go and replace the two chaperones who might not want to go with two that did. I think that violates the whole original vote of this committee a year and a half ago. That we, in this case, we're setting ourselves up for the next time this occurs with some political ramifications. One part of the group could say, well, half of us will go. And we'd be sitting here debating that next future issue. So I think it's kind of all for one or not. And we voted a year and a half or 2 years ago for X number of kids to go and chaperones, and then we discover what's now going could potentially be a very, very uncomfortable 3 or 4 days in the city. Do we want to hope that through, or do we just want to look towards next year? Unfortunately, with some seniors, they may not be able to make it, but that's how school trips sometimes go. But fortunately, it's so infrequent. So I wouldn't recreate another trip with a fraction of the kids for the sake of letting some kids go.
And I would say that, having just signed my own child up for the Italy trip, the insurance wasn't an option. I mean, was an option. For you guys had to sign up for the insurance, and thank goodness you did, because we would be having a very different conversation right now. So it's actually really interesting to think about how they did make you sign up for the insurance, where Italy was like, for an additional blah, 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 you can have this too. And of course, I'm an insurance agent, so I've signed me up, assured me everywhere. But I'm also in risk management, and things happen, and risk happens, and you're going overseas, and
Are you still using the same company for Italy?
no.
No, that's,
It's the other
It's
part.
EF,
We
yeah.
use, there's two. We use World Strides and
no,
EF.
we use several, but
Well,
yes.
the only two I remember, Jen.
Yes, but
They
we
use
use
several.
EF a lot.
They use EF a
But we
lot,
use
yeah.
several, yes.
But that, I don't know why that wasn't an option, but it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, so here we are. So I would echo Mr. Russell that I feel that the best strategy is the all or none kind of three musketeer thing, all for one or one for all, and once we make a decision, if the decision is to cancel the trip, we put all of our effort towards supporting our families and making you whole again, for the safety of our kids. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add? Yes? No? You can talk, if you want to. She's looking at me like.
My name's Leah Tambolio, and I was going as a chaperone and also sending my daughter. She's a junior this year. And I have been in and out of Europe most of my late teens, early 20s, so much so I can't donate blood anymore because they're worried about the mad cow. I've seen a lot of the footage, and I've seen a lot of protests, and what I'm seeing doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before. And I do have a level of nervousness about the unpredictability and liability of having a group of kids in my charge. And that would be my only thought to express.
Honesty's the best policy. Anything else from parents, families? I know it's frustrating, and I know it's neither way is going to be good. So, love my job. Ms. Stout?
I would just jump off what Scotty said, that I think that this is really because we're a school system. There are many parents who could decide to bring their own children or get together as a few friends and decide to do something like that. and it may be very fine for them, but because kids are in our trust, we do have to look at things in a secure way for this and going forward.
All right. So if no one has anything else to say, because this is a emergency meeting, we do have an action item for a vote required. So at this time, I would open for a motion. I don't have to make it because I'm the chair.
I would move to rescind the school committee vote of whatever that date would be,
October 2nd,
Leah,
2021.
that included the students from the high school to visit the city of Paris. Due to the discussion the school committee had on this date.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm going to open it for discussion, but I am going to make a note that I think that if we're going to make a point about canceling the trip, we should reference in the motion that we're canceling the trip we approved on such date. This is just my suggestion, due to, and then I think we should list specific or one specific categorical reason why, for safety or for whatever it is, you're wanting your motion to, so that can also be used for documentation if needed. Mr. Carpenter?
I just have a friendly suggestion that you use the wording specifically of because of civil unrest and strikes, which are specific wording in the travel company's exceptional circumstances in their cancellation policy for why a trip could be postponed or moved to another venue.
Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Russell?
Very much so.
Ms. Stout, would you?
Yes. I agree that's an improvement.
You want to retract your second?
Yes,
Okay,
I
so
do.
we're going to retract the second. And Mr. Russell's going to amend the motion, or did you edit?
So I have moved to rescind approval of the Paris trip per the vote on October 2nd, 2021, due to the civil unrest in Paris, France,
I might
as
add,
of 4/3/23.
And strikes.
and strikes.
Okay.
Due to
And
civil
safety
unrest
issues.
and strikes.
Just a point of, the strikes are actually all over France, but we only see them in Paris, but they're in most of the major cities throughout France. Just a
Does it say France?
point of information.
I say in Paris, France.
Just France?
Okay.
You're saying to amend to France, Mr. Russell?
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting to amend it. I'm just
Oh.
saying that's not the only place. Our kids are only going to Paris.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if you were looking
Right,
to
I'm sorry.
amend. Would you
I'm
like?
comfortable with Leah, that
Okay,
civil unrest in the city of Paris.
Okay.
okay, all right. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and any questions or discussion? I know you guys can, you're all holding your breath, I can tell, I'm so sorry. Okay. All right, so I'll do roll call vote. Actually, we're all present, I can do all in favor.
Okay, yeah.
Holy moly, this doesn't happen often because of COVID rules. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And motion carries.
Jackie, just a
Yes,
quick,
Dr. Carpenter.
given the vote of the committee, there was a suggestion from the parents that we engage the media. So I've already typed up something and sent it to Joy. So in the morning, we will start leveraging that, and I'll put something together for families to send to the Attorney General's office to work with the Attorney General to do what we can and leverage what we can to make families whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we can do, full power behind, from the committee and the district for the families to make you guys whole again, 100%. So we'll do everything we can in our power to make it loud. So it's unfortunate, but I do feel a little relief for our students, for their safety. And we know as adults that sometimes it's just a blip on the radar and it's a very, very huge, important deal to them. and to have compassion for that, but also there's going to be so many more amazing opportunities for them, and we hope that we can provide those as a district and use this as a learning opportunity going forward, and put our best foot forward for our students. So we hope you share in that, and we appreciate you guys coming and all of your comments and the meeting on Friday. It's really important to hear from everyone. So at this time, I would welcome a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And a second.
I would second that.
A meeting adjourned at 8:16. Oh.
Aye.
Opposed? Same.
Thank you all for coming.